2025 was the year that I stopped making excuses for myself and I decided to start taking my finances seriously. It changed my life in a lot of different ways, and I think going beyond just the obvious reasons, I never realized how much and to the extent that I was chasing dopamine externally from a lot of things, but we're talking about money, so from purchases. I never sat down to think about it. And I think we hear a lot about, chasing dopamine and the dopamine that comes with, making a purchase. But for me, it wasn't about making the purchase. It was having something to look forward to, where I would place an order online and I had something to look forward to of, okay, I have a week and then this thing's going to be here. But then when that thing would get here, it never fulfilled me. It never made me happy. It never brought me any of the things that I think I was looking for from this purchase. I think really what it came down to was I just wanted something to look forward to, and it was whatever was in the mail that week. I've had to really sit with myself. I don't know what suddenly made this click. Maybe my frontal lobe developed. I think also with, being in a serious relationship and realizing like, all right, I want to buy a house one day. I want to have children one day. I had to sit with myself and be like, girl, you got to prepare for that now then. It's not a thing where like, the year you decide you want to have children, that's when you start to grow up and that's when you start to take your finances seriously. Obviously, if that's the situation that happens, then that's a situation that happens. But if you're in a position where you can prep for things, definitely do it early. So that's sort of where I'm at of like, I have to stop screwing around. When I first made this decision, it came with a lot of shame, I think, and self-loathing and guilt, and just I was pissed off at my past self because I worked my ass off from a very young age. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that I knew I wanted to get the hell out of my family house. And in order to do that, I had to get myself on my own feet. Like, I did not have a safety net. I didn't have family members who were wealthy. I didn't have people supporting me financially. It was up to me. So as an 18-year-old girl, I started a business and I worked my ass off and I was doing really well for myself. But I had nothing to show for it because I knew nothing about money. That's sort of the conversation that I want to have today is I think our generation, but honestly beyond our generation, it's our parents' generation and our grandparents' generation, everyone is drowning in debt and it is very normalized. I see a lot of TikToks of people sharing their debt and they're in $50,000 of credit card debt and then they still somehow go and buy a $60,000 car and all of these different things, and it's just so normalized. And what I'm saying here is not to shame anybody. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I think we need to be having these conversations to show that this is a normal thing, but it doesn't have to be that way. This does not have to be your situation. There's no shame in it. And the reason that there's no shame in it is because we weren't taught better. We weren't taught because our parents weren't taught, because their parents weren't taught, and it's a cycle. And that's something I also realized of like, I'm breaking this cycle. I'm not passing this down to my children. Absolutely not. And that's also what stopped me in those cycles of shame, where it's like, I wish I had done better. I could have set myself up so beautifully I could have had $50,000 in a retirement fund by now, and I could have had all of these different things in saving, and I probably could have paid off my car, and I coulda, but I didn't, because I didn't know better. And that's okay. All that we can do in any moment is do the best that we can with the knowledge that we have. I cannot look back and expect myself to have done anything differently because I did not know better. Growing up in a very financially illiterate family, I thought as long as I'm not living paycheck to paycheck, I'm rich. Like, that is wealth. You're not one missed shift away from your electric being shut off. Girl, you're good. You're set up good. And, I was taught things like open a credit card as young as you can and start building your credit, but I wasn't taught pay it off every single, like as soon as you make a purchase on it, pay that. I wasn't taught different things. So I had no knowledge of like budgeting, let alone actual financial literacy of investing and savings and different types of accounts and retirement. I had no idea. I decided I wanted to learn. And I really started to think about this. And I've been putting this off for several years where it was like, oh, I should start a Roth IRA. I should, but I still didn't know what any of that meant. So last year, I really decided to just put my head down and do it. And I think a lot of the times we tend to avoid certain things because we lack knowledge. And I'm here to say I still don't know a lot of things, but you have to start somewhere. And it's not rocket science. And I'm going to give some of my knowledge that I have, but I do just want to say I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a financial professional. This is not me giving you advice. This is simply me telling you what I did and what's really helped me and really transformed my life. I feel lighter walking around every day because I know I now have a safety net, and I also know that I have a plan, and that feels really good. But before I dive into a bunch of those different things, I think there are 3 main reasons why our generation is struggling so much. And the first one that I mentioned already was we weren't taught. You can't do anything if you don't know anything. But I think there are 2 other reasons. And the one that I struggled with, in addition to not being taught, was sort of existing in this constant state of impending doom, where it was like, well, the world's probably going to end. I'm not going to have kids. We're probably not going to live past 40. What's the point? What's the point? The economy is in shambles. There's going to be no point in having retirement funds. Why do I care? Spend the money. Go have fun. Who gives a shit? And I had that mindset for quite a while until I sort of snapped out of it and was like, but what if that's not the case? I think the other reason is the consumerism and capitalism and just comparison culture of social media, where we are constantly seeing influencers living these lavish lifestyles and convincing us that in order to be happy, you have to go on this wellness retreat. And in order to have true health and wellness, you need to buy a $500 vibration plate and this big red light therapy thing and go to weekly acupuncture and go to weekly this, that, the third, and spend to be happy, to be healthy, to be blah, blah, blah. That's not the case. Number 1, it's not realistic. Number 2, why the hell would I want to do that? Everything you need, you already have. Everything you need to be healthy, to be happy, you've got that. We just have to unlock that. But also realizing that the people that are showing these things, and I say this as someone who has worked in the influencer industry for many years, a lot of them are either being funded by their parents, it's funded through brand deals, or it's funded through their $50,000 of credit card debt. I don't have the first 2, and I really don't want that last option. So I don't need it. That's sort of where I started to wake up, was that whole concept of I don't need it. I don't need it. I don't need it. And I think the first step for me, at least, was getting so honest with myself and so real with myself, not in a shameful way, but in a taking radical accountability way and accepting the fact that, yeah, I wasn't good with my money, but that's okay. I can't change it now. All I can change is how I decide to act moving forward. And I'm going to decide every day to learn a little bit and every day to make a better decision than I did the day before. And that's all I can ask of myself. It is never too late to start. It's the best to start as early as you possibly can. And guess what? That's today. Sure, I would have loved if I started this shit when I was 18. I didn't. So I started when I was 24, and that's okay. That's all I can do, you know? So the first step for me was really sitting down with myself, and this is going to be so uncomfortable. It's going to be so uncomfortable, but getting very clear on where I was financially. So there's a few different parts to this. The first being writing out my income and seeing what I was bringing in each month and really looking at it. And then from there, writing out my necessities and my recurring expenses. So my rent, my phone, my groceries, all of these things. And something that I've noticed recently that I can improve on is I would leave some things out because I would budget, but forget little things like my dog's pet insurance and my $35, of copay for my therapy sessions. I would forget the little things. Try your best not to forget those little things because they do add up. And the reason I've been remembering these little things and realizing them is because I recently started using Rocket Money. This is not a sponsorship. I'm not out here telling you to spend more money. I think it's $11 a month. The reason that I really like it is because it is attached to your bank account. So it forces you to look at this shit. Whereas previously it was yeah, I'll look at my spending. And I didn't. I didn't. You're really less inclined to go and swipe your card or use Apple Pay all the time if you're looking at that shit going out of your bank account all the time. But I think a lot of us, at least myself, I wasn't looking at it. I did not want to know. I was not looking at my bank account at all. But now when I open my bank account, I'm like, hell yeah, that feels so good. I got Rocket Money, but then I also just did this. I really recommend doing it pen and paper. Eventually I transferred it to my computer, but my income, my expenses, and then see what I have left over after my income and expenses. I recently started listening to the Ramsey show with Dave Ramsey. That's gonna probably be controversial. He's very probably Republican, but definitely very Christian. I heard about him growing up in my Christian church that I used to go to, but I recently rediscovered it. Yeah, I don't agree with a lot of the things that you probably believe, but he doesn't talk about his political beliefs or his religious beliefs or anything really on the podcast, and I think he has really good financial insight. So I just wanted to say that. You don't have to listen to it if you don't want to, but he has this interesting perspective where it's like, get very clear on your income, what you're making, what you're spending, and then write out your debts. So that's the other part, is writing out your debts, your car payment, your whatever. If you're paying off your phone, if you have student loans, if you have personal loans, if whatever debts that you have, write them out and look at them. And then his sort of philosophy is you save $1,000 for an emergency fund, and then after that you do not save and you do not put into retirement funds, you don't invest, you tackle your debts. And I do kind of agree with that to an extent. So he says start tackling the smallest debts and work your way up. So if you have a phone bill that's $1,000, start tackling that, pay it off, and then pay off your car. And then once you're debt free, then start saving, which I do like. Again, I understand to a degree because he keeps saying like, what are you saving for? You're broke. Stop putting that money into savings and put it into this debt that you're going to end up paying more on if you don't pay it off because you're paying interest. Anyway, sorry, that might have been a little overwhelming, but I'd like to plug that in there just because if that's something that feels good to you, and I do recommend if that intrigues you, go listen to his podcast just to hear him talk about it. The podcast is essentially like radio show where people call in and tell them their situations, their financial situations, and Dave or a bunch of their other co-hosts will like give them advice. And I think it is very helpful to hear other people's situations and how they can get out of it. The other reason that I think this is a really helpful podcast is if you are someone who is in an incredible amount of debt and you feel like you're drowning, because financial stress is suffocating. So if you're in that situation, I think it's helpful to hear other people who are in similar or worse situations, and then hear someone who is so financially literate just be like, all right, here's what you're going to do. That sucks to be in that situation, but it's all right. You can get out of it. And it's very, 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 very helpful. So I do recommend listening to that if you're interested, but that is one option where you can sort of tackle all of your debt. I sort of took a different option where I didn't do that necessarily. The only debt that I have now is my car payment. But other than that, like I paid off my credit card, and I ended up working with functional care practitioners, so I paid them off as well. And it does feel good. I can't lie. Every time you pay off a debt, it's like, holy shit, I can breathe a little bit better because now I don't have this payment plan for the next 6 months. All I have to do is this. Moral of the story, get picture perfect clear on your money, your circumstances, how much you make, how much you spend. Get Rocket Money if you're interested to really see how much you spend. And then from there we can start building a plan. So after you have your income and your expenses, and only start with the necessities. Your nails are not a necessity, babe. I'm sorry to break it to you. That's your fun money. We'll get to that. But your necessities like food, water, your utilities, things of that nature, your car payment, all of that. Subtract your expenses from your necessities, from your income, and what you have left over is your leftover money. At least for me, when I used to hear people say this, I was like, I don't have enough money left over to do anything with. It could be $40. And then you divide that up. So what I started to do then was divide this leftover money into different categories. One was savings, one was my retirement investments, and then the rest was fun money. I'm in a season of life where I have the ability to be aggressive with my saving and my investing because I have no children. Like, I don't have a ton of things to pay for aside from my livelihood. So I am going to be aggressive now while I am able to do so. So I save and invest far more than I give myself in terms of fun money. So I write out how much every single month or per paycheck, eventually divided up into per paycheck, that I will put into savings and that I'll put into my investments, which is my Roth IRA, which I will talk about. And then the rest that's left over is fun money. What I did from there to really set myself up for success is this piece of advice: pay yourself first. Seriously. And I don't mean pay yourself the fun money first. No, babe. Pay yourself the savings and pay yourself your investment money first. I really recommend automatic withdrawals. If you know you get paid on the same amount every single month on the same day or whatever, set up automatic withdrawals where the date of your payday, you have your amount of money that goes to savings, immediately go there, and the money that goes into investments, immediately go there. That way you don't have to think about about it. You don't have the option to spend it poorly. I highly recommend that. And just while we're on the topic of savings, I think it's very useful and helpful in setting yourself up for success. You're going to hear me say that a lot. The whole part of financial freedom and financial responsibility I've learned as someone who was not taught it and was not good with my money until recently is set yourself up for success. So through using these automatic payments and through getting very clear and having a plan and educating yourself. But the other part of that is having a savings account that is separate from your debit card, that is separate from your checking account, because otherwise it is way too easy to just quickly transfer savings into checking when you're at Target and you need a little bit more money. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. In addition to that, open a high yield savings account. This essentially is just a savings account that over time makes you more money because it has a high yield. It has an interest rate that comes back, but it accrues money over time, which is what you want. So I use Marcus by Goldman Sachs. That's my personal favorite. There are a ton out there, but I highly recommend it for the reason that it makes you more money. Because why not? If I have my money sitting there and what I put in my sort of savings account is just my emergency fund, why would I not want to have that make me more money if possible? And I also don't want to open my credit union account that has my debit card and see my savings account, because that's not for me right now. That's put away for later. And then same with my investment account. I use Fidelity. There's also Vanguard. All of them are great. And in terms of investing, I have a Roth IRA. I, up until recently, never had a 401k because I've been self-employed for so long. So I decided I wanted to set myself up for success with retirement. But even if you do have a 401k, having a Roth is a great idea. A Roth IRA is non-taxable when you withdraw it at retirement. And I believe it's now $6,000 a year that you can input into it. So if you have the financial ability to input $6,000 a year and max it out, I definitely think it's a great idea. That's what I'm working towards. And then in addition to that, having other means of savings and investing, which I haven't gotten there yet. My only investments right now is my Roth IRA. And the good thing is you can talk to financial advisors and they usually won't charge you. Sometimes they, if you work together with them, they will do things for you and then just take a percentage of your earnings. But basically what I do is I just looked up Roth IRA advice on TikTok and I just started learning. What I found was best was to invest in, I believe it's called an index fund, but investing in a fund that is set for my retirement year. So I put mine to 2065. And basically it sort of moves things around for you. And it's not just investing in one company or one stock, it's investing in a lot of different areas. And since it's set for my retirement year, it will move my money accordingly and invest in certain things at certain times of my life to set me up for success when I retire. Some people recommend other things, which probably would be smarter if I knew a little bit more about investing, but this is a great low barrier to entry investment for my Roth IRA for retirement that does the hard work for me. All I have to do is put my money into my Fidelity account. And I will say this, it's not just putting the money into your Roth IRA, you also then have to buy the actual shares. So the first part of that transaction is transferring money from your bank account into your Fidelity or Vanguard account. And then from there, you'll see the option to buy shares in certain things. That's what you have to do. You have to buy the shares in whatever you want to. So mine's that 2065 fund. I hope that made sense. If this doesn't, again, I would recommend listening to podcasts, looking at TikToks, things like that. I'm not a financial expert. I just wanted to share things that have helped me because I think more people need to talk about it, even if you're not an expert. So that's the first step. And then you have your fun money, and you do not need a lot of fun money, especially if you're in a season where you're paying off debt and trying to save money. You have to be honest with yourself. You don't need to spend so much money. If you are someone who's like, I feel so good when I have my nails done, either learn how to do it yourself or accept all right, maybe I have $300 of fun money a month. That's coming out of that. And guess what, babe? When that fun money's up, that's all you get. You don't need to baby yourself. It's not going to be glamorous, but you gotta be honest with yourself. What do you really want? What do you really need? For me personally, where I'm at now, it's it feels so much better to realize I have money in savings and investments and I'm doing well for myself than getting my nails done or than buying random shit. It feels so good to be like, yes, I have money in my savings. I'm putting more in. And then also with that, I've set little rules for myself around spending because I realized I used to just spontaneously buy shit that I didn't need. So if I have something I want to get off of Amazon, I make myself sit on it for 2 days. I sleep on it and I think about it. And by then you would have gotten a different dopamine hit and you probably realize you don't want it or you don't need it. That doesn't go for things like cat food and things you know you need. But if it's random little shit, maybe it's a new piece of clothing. Do you need that? Do you need new clothes? Don't you have enough? If you really need something new, go look at the thrift store first. Or if you want a good quality item that will last a long time, that's coming out of your fun money, but when that's up, you don't get more. So keep that in mind. But then also just like being real with myself. And when I want to make a purchase, asking myself, why? Am I actually going to use this for more than a month? Why do I want this? Do I actually, like, will this improve my life? Will I use this? Or do I just want this because they have it and it looks cool to them? I almost bought a $50 journal at the last week of this year, planner. And I was like, I have a planner. I don't need this. I don't need it. And I never end up sticking to my planners. I did just buy myself a new journal cover and I am like 100% going to use it because I have like really taken up the hobby of journaling because I'm trying to not be on my phone so much. So there's things like that where it's like, yeah, that's something I do want. This would improve the quality of my life and it's coming out of my fun money and I don't get more when that's up. So that's that. And then the other thing that's been helpful for me is just reducing costs where I can. Groceries are expensive. Very expensive, but you can shop at Aldi. I just went to Aldi today and I spent $100 for a week of groceries for 2 people. That's $400 a month. That's really not that bad. And it could probably be cheaper if I needed it to be. So it's things like that where it's like, you don't need to go to Whole Foods. And I'm saying this as someone who's gluten-free, soon to be dairy-free. Those things are nice. They're yummy foods, whatever, but learn to make them yourself. Aldi doesn't have a ton of gluten-free options. So some things I splurge on, but again, I have my budget for groceries. And what I don't want to spend money on, like there's this delicious brand of English muffins that I love. I'm going to learn how to make them because I'm tired of spending $10 for 6 English muffins. I plan out my meals for the week before I go grocery shopping so that I don't aimlessly spend. Because before I would just buy a bunch of ingredients and they'd go to waste. And I would still have to go out in the middle of the week. But now I plan out my meals. And it's very simple where I get maybe 2 or 3 meats for the week, a few veggies, and then some carbs. And then like I'll plan my meals before that. But for example, if you get chicken breast and ground beef for your meats for the week, you could have one night maybe a chicken Caesar salad, and the next night you have burgers, and then the next night you have chicken, mashed potatoes, and Brussels sprouts, and the night after that you have spaghetti bolognese with the beef that you made, and you're alternating there, and that will help you spend so much less money. Also, you don't have to try crazy new recipes every week that each have their own ingredients. That you don't have to spend that much money on groceries. If you go in with a plan and shop at a place like Aldi, I promise you'll save a lot of money. So it's things like that where it's save money where you can. I also just this past year refinanced my car because I knew nothing about finances and interest rates and shit like that when I got my car. So I got a 12% interest rate. And I believe when I got my car at CarMax, it was $21,000 was the price of my car. And if I would have continued to pay that with that loan, by the end of my 5-year loan, I would have paid $32,000 with my 12% interest rate. It was insane. I've had my car for, I think, 3 years now, and I only got my bill down to like $16,000 through them, which was insane. So I refinanced my car, which was something that felt very scary to me. I knew nothing about, but I just started calling different credit unions and things like that and talking to them about their refinancing rates and if they had fees with refinancing. And I ended up getting a new loan for my interest rate is like 3%, I think. And my monthly bill decreased, but I'm still paying the same amount. So when I had my loan through CarMax, I was paying like $400 a month. My car payment now is $200 something a month, but I'm still paying $400. So I can pay it off quicker and get ahead of that interest rate. And I pay it only applied to my principal because otherwise, something I learned is when you pay, especially in the first few years of a new loan, all you're paying is interest, which is why my shit did not go down at all with CarMax because my interest was so high, all of my payments were interest payments. So it's things like that where it's like, you're going to have to make compromises. And that's another hard pill to swallow is like, all right, maybe you just got a $50,000 car. Do you need that? Probably not. It's nice, But like, would you rather have this or be comfortable and have a safety net? If you'd really rather have that car, then by all means, queen, go for it. But it's like, you don't need it. You don't need an $800 per month car payment, especially if you're broke. Like, I'm not saying this to be mean, but it's like, if you're already in $100,000 of student debt, why don't we work on tackling that? Those are the hard truths. This is a process that a lot of emotions came up for me during. So if that happens for you, it's understandable, but you're okay. I promise you. It is okay. I know it feels like you might be drowning, you're suffocating, you don't know how to get out of this, but you can get out of this and you will get out of this, but you have to face it. You are not alone. So many people are in this situation. You're able to get out of it. I promise you. Be gentle with yourself. Learn more every day. That is all you can do. You might be pissed off. I was pissed off at my parents, at school, at myself. I was pissed off at everyone, and that's okay. That's understandable. Allow yourself to feel the emotions that you need to feel. But at the end, come to a place of compassion and self-care and just gentleness with yourself and giving yourself the grace of like, I'm going to do the best I can moving forward, because the most radical thing you can do is take back control of your life and of your finances. I'm going to leave the links to some different TikToks and resources and podcasts that I've really liked that have helped me a lot. And maybe they'll be helpful for you, but I am not a professional here. These are just things I've learned along the way as a girl who knew nothing about finances and is slowly learning a little bit. But the bottom line is, you are not alone. You can get out of this. I believe in you. You've got this.